No, it's frustrating what they do. I know. They're doing this on purpose. Just remember that.
It's not pointless because how else are we going to record? And I'm familiar with Zoom.
I can't believe they blocked my other fucking shit.
It's just, it's not pointless. It's just I got to get back to it and I got to calm down because I'm just.
Jen, please.
Start comparing these things and you see, where are things troubling and where are they good? And start to think about what might account for those differences. When you segment your data, you can start to see potential risk factors. That is, the conditions or factors that are associated with some undesirable outcomes, such as poor performance, turnover, well-being challenges. Sometimes these can be root causes that you can directly tackle. So you can start to see, if you did a segmentation, you see an area where something is very problematic, you can start to explore the factors, and you might find some risk factors that you can directly tackle. So like sometimes with like children and families, the workforce related risk factors can't be completely eliminated though. So
risk factors for the workplace.
So then you're looking for potential protective factors that might offset the risk. So maybe you can't solve the problem, but maybe you can offset it. So for example, you might find that the workload and stress are risk factors, and you might have challenge addressing those. You might be able to
well, then stop attacking so many innocent people.
Supportive coworkers that can offset that risk and serve as protective factors. So these are the things that the workforce data can be used to explore, especially.
Wow, how bad is that? They make a horrible environment for them.
Type of workforce data
but a nightmare.
Today is diversity, equity, and inclusion data.
What if that's not what you believe in? That's political view.
Diversity refers to the degree of differences in composition.
That's a political view.
In terms of group or social identities, which I'll elaborate on shortly. Equity refers to the degree of fairness in treatment and outcomes for employees, just as we have disproportionality in outcomes for children and families.
And how do you distinguish the differences?
In terms of workforce outcomes. And then finally, inclusion refers to the
what are your factors?
Regardless of their social identities. And we'll talk about in a minute too. Inclusion can also be thought of in terms of the actions or the inclusive behaviors that lead to feelings of being respected and valued. So let me go over each one of these and talk about data, starting with diversity.
It's very manipulative.
So here's a very simple example for one type of social identity, race. We have a table here with various categories of race. And these are pulled from the U.S. Census. Aligning your data with census is useful because they offer community data that may be helpful as you consider.
I know I don't want to be here either.
We'll talk in a minute why it's important to know the demographics of where they live. So then they would match when you compare them.
No.
However, some other categories might make better sense for your community, and to make sure that employees feel included when they're asked to share their race, because you don't want people to feel othered to the extent that you can avoid that. We know that on the analysis side of things, you might need to collapse categories, and that's fine. But what's important is what are people feeling and experiencing when they're being asked this question. Also want to point out that they should be allowed to select more than one race, so that they're not forced to pick an identity. Even though you see here on this table that it says it says two
that's
or more
against
races,
civil rights.
Analyses when we need to collapse them if you don't
to divide people like that
in certain categories to do proper analyses. But point being is that on the question side of things, people feel included. Let's see. The bottom line then, is just to be really thoughtful about how you ask the questions at the beginning here. The other thing, as you're exploring social identity, diversity rather, is to consider other social identities, as you see here, visible and invisible. And you may also want to consider intersectionality, of multiple identities combined to create additional groups. So you see we've got also ethnicity, age, gender identity and expression, sexual orientation, religion, disability status, age, language, and other social identities. And so this is where segmentation can become particularly very valuable to see diversity and possibly inequities, which I'll get to in a second, that might be hiding when you just do these very large overall analyses of your data. So let's say this is the racial diversity of your frontline staff. The simplest way to analyze diversity data is to calculate the number and percentage of employees in a given identity category. So you can see here, I've got them in descending order. White 68%, Black or African American 18%.
Do you even have the chat block?
There to smaller groups. So knowing an agency's workforce composition can be really useful on its own, but it really doesn't tell you too much more about whether it's sufficiently diverse or equitable and so on. So a simple way to explore diversity is if you're able to get information from your local labor pool, about your local labor pool rather, there's various sources for that. They can be available to the U.S. Census Bureau and maybe other state and local sources. Then you can compare the two to see where you stand. So the goal is for your workforce to reflect the diversity of the available talent pool that meets hiring qualifications. And the simple analysis here is called the utilization analysis, standard way of assessing this. You can see it's very simple to calculate. It's the getting the labor pool numbers that's the hard part, right? So the math is easy after that. So positive numbers reflect overrepresentation, and negative numbers reflect underrepresentation. Note that this analysis is not indicative of discrimination at this point, but it can give you a sense of whether you need to look at your personnel practices. Now, in terms of developing diversity or representation goals, you can use this information to do that with some caution. Optimally, like I said, I want to underscore this, your workforce should reflect the diversity of the available talent pool that meets hiring qualifications. So that's the first criterion. People have to meet the job qualifications. Okay? Then you want to consider your recruitment, hiring, promotion, and retention strategies. Those are all the ways you can change those numbers. But I want to emphasize you cannot give preferential treatment based on classes or status in a particular group. The goal instead is to remove barriers to ensure equal access and opportunity. Right? So you're not going to look at those numbers and be like, well, we're going to stop hiring a whole bunch of people in this group because we're overrepresented.
What does that mean to remove
Or you're going to
barriers?
say, we're going to start hiring more of this type of person. You want to start looking at all of your processes, including recruitment strategies, to try to make sure you're really tapping your pool. Now let's turn to equity. So equity is the degree of fairness in treatment, access, opportunity, and outcomes.
As individuals or clusters?
With particular attention to those that are members of protected classes. And
Exactly.
we have listing a couple here, race, color, age, that is 40 and over age, disability, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, and pregnancy, religion, and national origin.
So why do you still use those to get your
There are federal laws
maltreatment
that
risk factor?
as well, that protect these classes. We know from research that there are differences in treatment and outcomes based on many of these factors in the realm of personnel practices such as recruitment, hiring, professional development, promotion, performance evaluation, compensation, on and on. So they are really important to examine with or without.
I don't think it's that needs examining.
They are very important to be aware of. So you should be mindful of those as you're exploring these things. The primary strategy
who's
for
scoring
assessing
those
equity
things?
is to segment or disaggregate any workforce metric by group identity variable of interest to see if there are differences between groups. So you can look at lots of personnel processes related to recruitment, hiring, training. You see the theme here saying it's training, professional development, performance, discipline, absenteeism, etc. Those are the types of personnel processes you want to be looking at, particularly the personnel decisions that are made by the agency versus by the applicant or the employee. So dismissal versus resignation, let's say. There are specific analyses that can be done to examine if there are substantive differences, like really meaningful meta threshold kind of differences in areas such as hiring, discipline, promotion, or termination. These kinds of differences, when they meet a certain threshold, are called adverse impact, and they can result in legal liability and have to be rectified. I'm not going to go into those details here. They're not terribly complicated, but probably more than you want to know about right here. Further details about this can be found in our DEI handout in the handouts pod or in the resource center. So here's another example of how to further look at turnover in terms of comparing these groups from a DEI perspective. So here we have external turnover in this case. We're examining it by race and ethnicity. So in this first column of our table, we have white, not Hispanic origin, Black, not Hispanic origin,
Isn't it
Hispanic,
sick?
and then Asian or Pacific Islander, and American
Sick people.
Indians, or Alaskan. And they're also in descending order, with the highest turnover being 64% on white, 20% among Black, not Hispanic origin, and then descending further from there, big drop off, 6, and 3%. So you can see how they vary. Of course, given the likely variation in number of people in these groups in the first place, this information doesn't really tell you very much. So you should also consider their representation in the job. So now you can compare, to see if there's more disproportionality in it. This isn't the most technical and proper analysis, but this gives you, it's an easy thing to look at and interpret pretty quickly. So you can see where there may be disproportionality in leaving. And the most noteworthy findings are in the second row of this table for employees who are Black employees of non-Hispanic origin represent 20% of the external turnover, but only 9% of the workforce population. So this would certainly be something to further explore and perhaps get into some more advanced type of analysis to make sure to see what's going on here. In addition to doing a more advanced analysis of adverse impact, you could also look at do more of that segmentation to see if there are some regional differences or some other factors that might account for it. You could always get to the point of even maybe focus groups to really drill down and do some root cause analysis there. Another way to explore equity is to measure applicant or employee perceptions, typically through surveys or focus groups, so not administrative data. So here are some examples of the types of employee perceptions that would be relevant. Michelle already mentioned many of these. These are employee well-being types of variables, engagement, job satisfaction, stress, organizational engagement. Others are more directly related to matters of equity, so you see their fairness, discrimination, civility, and ostracism that are really getting at the perceptions of equity. And so in all of these, you could gather employee information data and then start breaking it down and doing that segmenting by group identity. So it's really important to gather those as part of the survey and explain to people why you're gathering that information if they're hesitant to share that. So by now you should be thinking about how you can segment survey results to see if there are lots of different ways to explore differences among people, and we encourage you to do that. Last one is inclusion. Again, like I said, that's the degree in which employees feel respected, accepted, supported, and valued regardless of their gender, race, ethnicity, age, disability, other social identities. Again, I want to reiterate that some people, this term has sort of evolved, especially in the last several years. So some think of this as more a reflection of what would be called belonging, that is how people feel, and instead define inclusion in terms of behaviors that leads to those feelings. Regardless, though, which definition you go with, measures of both are pretty limited. So
I'm going to stop it there because this is all a clear violation of civil rights in every aspect.
But the handout,
Their maltreatment risk factors are too. So, what is this?
So now I'm going to turn to a hypothetical example here to just give you more information, ideas about what this could look like to think about and apply some of the concepts that we've just shared. So here we've got the child welfare agency is concerned about their timely initiation of CPS assessments as well as the quality of the risk and safety assessments. Turnover is also an ongoing problem, which results in higher caseloads for stayers. Let's heard of this problem, right? So the question is, how can the agency better use workforce data as one means to understand these issues? I want to emphasize one means to understand these issues because you wouldn't rely on it exclusively. Before we dive into that, I'd like to highlight one of the handouts from the brief workforce needs assessment, which includes many potential questions to consider as you explore your workforce.
Can you guys hear it okay?
So the idea there is to really take your time to be thorough and systematic in understanding the workforce issues, rather than just jumping to identifying solutions. There are lots of questions and data to look at. So here we're trying to.
Can you see it?
We've got presenting issues. We have some job performance concerns. Michelle shared a list of those. Specifically here, we've got issues with task quality, with risk and safety assessments, and task timeliness with investigation.
Wow.
We also have turnover as a potential factor.
Now you see why these social workers are the way they are, right?
We're going to use an example of data to enhance our understanding.
This is why.
So let's zoom out and look at turnover more broadly to illustrate the process of drilling down. So let's say we're focused on the child welfare worker job on all roles. I'm going to give some annual turnover rates here because they're easiest for people to interpret, but you may want to focus on shorter, more recent periods of time, depending on the duration of this problem. So for the sake of illustration, I'm going to use turnover rate. So the external turnover rate is 25%, the internal is 16%, leading to a total turnover rate for this job of 41%. So that's the rate of the kind of turnover that can affect children and families.
They blame the social workers too.
And HR as well. So let's drill into that a little further. So we'll start with the breakdown for external turnover. Here you see both the number and percentage of people in each category. So for you see in the first row, we have resignation as a type of turnover. There's a large portion there, 42% is due to resignation, people choosing to leave, which is pretty common, right? Not maybe that number, but that's the top reason. A small amount is due to retirement, 5%, and 14% is due to people being dismissed, that is terminated. Like we said, Michelle said, on the one hand, this is considered desirable turnover, right? Because probably if they were dismissed, there was an issue with the performance. But on the other hand, there's quite a few people, 57 people, that we wouldn't mind having to say if we could get them to perform well. So that's something to look at in that.
The question is, what do they consider well performance?
The next three rows are focused on internal turnover. So you see that 8% of the overall movement is due to promotion. And assuming a strong, valid promotional process, this is a good means of retaining institutional knowledge and spreading their career ladder. So that's, functional kinds of turnover and movement. And then we've got 7% who've been reassigned. So this is generally due to performance issues, that like their probation period is over. So
Performance issues and then reassigned. So they're not bad people, but they couldn't handle CPS.
So they're retained but moved to a different job, either temporarily or permanently. So collectively, we're seeing that 21% of movement, that is 1 out of 5 people, are due to performance issues, which is a lot, and a lot of people that you want to explore that. So let's think about how we might do that. So to further investigate this, here are some questions to answer around dismissal. From where are these people being dismissed? What office, what supervisor, what particular role? Why are they being dismissed? Are there trends in the types of issues that you're seeing? And are they relevant to any of our presenting issues here, like task timeliness and completion?
Mm-hmm.
And when are they being dismissed? For example, relative to hire or completion of training. So again, this you can see, I hope where segmentation is going to be key here, just to drill down, to use some additional personnel data and possibly some qualitative data to get answers here.
Segmentation.
Likewise, you'd want to ask similar questions for reassignment. Where are they going from? Where are they
Going
being
from?
reassigned to, and why, and when, under what circumstances, not what time of year, but relative to hire, or relative to being done with training. And then finally, in the bottom row, we have a lot of people transferring into other positions or jobs, so lateral moves. Again, this is a lot of change for families and an opportunity for further investigation using these same questions. From where, to where, why, when, to help us understand and really drill down the possible.
What's your framework, retard?
So we've chosen to highlight the value of doing that for other types of turnover, besides voluntary and external turnover. the one we're most used to thinking about, right? Because other types are up and down. And the same process should be applied to voluntary external turnover as well. But we're kind of used to doing that, right? Why are they leaving? Let's do some exit interviews or stay interviews. Why are they staying? But looking at these other types of turnover is really important. So that's the big picture on turnover. Let's try to get a little closer to the issue at hand here. So we're looking at turnover here by role. So in this table, we have role or functions. We have intake or hotline, investigation or initial assessment, or whatever you call it, ongoing, permanency, and adoption. So we're looking at the external turnover rate. I want to emphasize this is the turnover rate. Unlike the last table where it was percentage of each group, this is the turnover rate in each category. Because it's clear, it takes into account the number of people that are in these roles, because the number of people in these roles varies, right? And I want to compare those to the overall turnover rate of 25%, just so you have a benchmark. So you can see that intake and adoption are lower. The overall is 25%. They're at 15 and 18%, respectively. And so they're lower than overall, but the rate is highest on people who are in investigation.
I wonder why.
38%. So now let's consider internal turnover, and keeping in mind that the overall internal turnover rate is just 16%. Again, the highest rate here is for investigation and initial assessment at 21%.
Because it's wrong.
So they're not just leaving.
It goes against everything they know.
Staying in the agency.
Everything we know.
Sort of some good news and helps you think about how to explore what's going on. And then let's just add one more variable. We've got average tenure at turnover. Here again, you can see that it's shortest for the investigation and initial assessment role at 17 months compared to a few years in other roles.
That's pretty quick.
These are hypothetical data, so don't walk away with any conclusions from these data.
I'm sure it's much higher.
Based on a true story, but adapted to her. So don't walk away saying you've heard some data. So collectively, we've established that the group is more problematic in the role question in our scenario. So, and there's more we could look at with the right data. You could further break down the external and internal rates and look at specific types of movement, and that might tell you more. So again, we're hoping if you're really into this, you can start to think, what about this? What about this? I would want to know this other thing. So, data leads to more questions, which leads to more analysis, more data to really get some answers.
I think we have enough data to figure out.
You also switch from your administrative data to data around employee experiences. Given that we see retention differences based on their role, we could look at employee perceptions of their perceived fit within their job. And my hypothetical example that just happens to work out, on a 5-point rating scale, you can see that the average rating of fit is lowest for the investigation and initial assessment role. So that would be something to think about. Likewise, you could add supervisor support ratings. Again, in my hypothetical example works out well here, that the average supervisor support rating is lowest among this in this role and higher in others. And finally, you could do burnouts, which is highest here in this role. And then you could segment further, perhaps by career and demographics. So we're not going to go into it further here, but you could also look into key performance metrics, timeliness of initiation of investigation and quality of assessments, and look at both administrative data and qualitative data from employees about the barriers they're encountering. So again, the point here is to use your data to do a thorough diagnosis of workforce issues before making decisions about how to handle them. And I just want to underscore again that you'll want to work with HR for all of that. By all means, please don't just send everyone to training.
Let me translate.
Strategy for performance issues.
If you're going to get sued because they fit in one of the criteria, talk to HR first.
Thanks, Megan. So we know that was a lot of information. The good news is that we have a lot of takeaway resources, which you can find in the handouts pod or in the resource center. And again, we want to really encourage you to check those out. Megan already mentioned the needs assessment guide. And in addition to that, we've got greater details on how to do that data segmentation that she illustrated We have a great handout on a variety of workforce metrics. There's one on measuring DEI, and there are a number of resources on measuring turnover. Some of these are written resources, white papers.
So instead of fixing the problem,
Short documents. But we also have some videos. So if you enjoy watching short videos,
they never
on
learn.
these topics, we have those available as well. If you have, found any of these ideas potentially useful for your organization, we really want to encourage you to look at the resources. And also to check out the Quick WG website, quick-wg.org, for many other workforce resources. So our call to action. Our call to action to this. First, we encourage you to adopt evidence-based management.
We encourage you to adopt.
And addressing the workforce issues.
Shit, come on now, fuck me. Really, come on.
Try logging on and then
I'm
getting back.
trying, I'm in your Zoom, it's not letting me open your page completely. I don't know why, I've got the full picture, everything. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, so, just a second, I'm gonna show you,
Interesting.
so.
We're on Facebook Live too, just so you know.
So thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We hope you'll enjoy.
Yeah, it's, yeah,
And have a great day.
I can see it, but I can't, it's loading, I see it, it's fine, it's loaded perfectly. So,
I'm gonna leave it on this, but I'm gonna turn off Facebook Live. No one's on anymore. Finished. Anyways.
yeah,
So they blocked my phone.
okay, so, fuck, I don't know, I
Isn't that something?
it's open. Okay, it's opened. Okay, it's open. Everything's great. But they must have blocked some YouTube channel or something because I cannot. I can't record it. It's not even letting me do it on the screen.
There it
I
is.
don't understand. Well, I do understand.
It's not even copywritten, by the way. This is government property, so it's free for the people. They cannot tell you can't record. This is not private.
Well, I know. And they already said it's for the public and everything.
They even
But
say that on their
why are they-
site.
I know, and they're blocking people, and it's like, so, I mean, I could, okay, here, I'm in it now. Okay, so I'm in it right now, so maybe I'm going to try to do it. I mean, it's just absolutely fucking ridiculous, okay? Is this like, okay, so here,
I'm hungry. I'm gonna go get something to eat soon. I'll leave this on, but
well, I'm just trying to get to it. It's not letting me open it. Okay, I'm trying. And it's just getting frustrating because, wait, you can't even see it. You can't see my screen, or can you?
I don't know if I'm looking at yours or mine. Hold on, let me
I
see.
know, well, okay, that's right. I get that.
Oh wait, no, I'm on.
Okay, mine says, you'll see mine, so it does show it on the screen, right? Okay, great. Oh my gosh.
God that even walks on land. Hallelujah. I learned this morning that we serve a God that if you leave him at home, he's in the car. He's in the building because he is Jehovah Shammah.
That was funny. So they blocked my phone. My guess is they're on this one pretty soon. That would be my guess. So here's who you should contact. Wow, isn't that something? No, I don't have any questions. You know, we'll go in a minute. I'm hungry. I'm gonna eat. Oh, no, 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 no. Do not get too bossy with me. All caps. I'm in. We're in. That's a shock.
In partnership with the Children's Bureau, the Capacity Building Center for States is working to address the current inequities and disparities experienced by those involved with the child welfare system.
This is why we organize and host the Child Welfare Virtual Expo, or as we like to call it, SWEBE, to have challenging conversations, examine the impacts of policy and practices, and identify promising strategies that advance equity, improve outcomes, and deliver services that positively impact children, young people, and families.
Child welfare professionals, leaders, and experts from across the country join us at SWEBE to meet and connect with peers and address some of the most pressing issues in child welfare today. As a result, providing the best online experience for our attendees is our top priority. SWEBE is hosted on an online conference platform with many interactive features that gives attendees an exciting virtual experience to engage with others, share and discuss ideas, find resources, and more, all from your computer, mobile device, or tablet. Together, we're helping to build a child welfare system that is more
best I can do. Good enough. It's not like anyone's gonna watch it anymore. You want to look at this or we can leave it? So just and they are sensory attacks. So it's kind of like, oh, I'm going to put it on my YouTube because you know what? I'm taking my phone.
Hello, and welcome to our session on the impact of lived expertise and evidence-based practice work. In our session today, participants will explore the benefits of incorporating evidence-based practices and people with lived expertise into their child welfare agencies by hearing firsthand from successful programs and practitioners. Participants will also be able to identify strategies to recruit and integrate people with lived expertise in the workforce. We're going to kick off the session with a presentation from Tina Willauer, Director of the START program, and Kelly Kirk, a Certified Peer Support Specialist from Richmond County, North Carolina, Health and Human Services.
Hi everyone, I'm Tina, and I'm going to kick us off today with a high-level overview of the Sobriety Treatment and Recovery Teams model, also known as START. And I always like to begin with a little history about the model. START's been around a long time, since the 1990s, and it's taken this long to evolve into the Alcohol and Drug Addiction Protection Team in 1989, and later evolved into the START prenatal substance exposure. And outcomes were poor for families, particularly families of color. This was around the time of the enactment of the Adoption Safe Families Act. It shortened the time period for parents to complete services and make a stable environment for their children. The model was developed with this in mind, since we know that recovery process for families can take longer than that small defined time frame. Fast forward to 2007, we were amidst the opioid epidemic in our country, and Kentucky was at the epicenter, facing some of the same issues that we